I, Olivia, 35F, was on a work trip when I received a video showing my husband cheating. I did not return thereafter. When he tracked me down in Italy, I sat at my hotel desk in Milan, my eyes tired from the long day of meetings. I'd been on this business trip for 3 days now, and all I could think about was getting back to my quiet life at home. I had promised myself that once the work was done, I'd treat myself to a few days of sightseeing and relaxation. After all, I needed a break, and what better place than Italy? But as I opened my laptop, preparing to go through emails, my phone buzzed. It was a message notification. At first, I didn't pay much attention, figuring it was another work-related update. But then I saw who it was from. Mark, my husband. I was used to his texts, even though he often kept it brief. He was never the romantic type, but I loved him in my own way. We had been together for nearly 8 years, and I trusted him. Our relationship had its ups and downs, sure, but nothing too serious. Or so I thought. The message was unlike any I'd received from him before. It was a video file. My heart skipped a beat as I clicked on it, unsure of what I was about to see. I was already on edge, the combination of the trip's stress and the late hour making my senses sharper. The video started to play, and I froze. There was Mark, in a hotel room. He was with someone else. A woman, with dark hair and a figure I didn't recognize, kissing him passionately. My mind raced. Was this real? Was this some kind of sick joke? I replayed the video, again and again, as if watching it would somehow make it less real. But it didn't. It only made it worse. This wasn't a mistake. It was an affair. And I could see it in his eyes, the same eyes that had promised me forever. I didn't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen in shock. The room around me felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in. I had so many questions, but none that seemed to matter. My heart broke into pieces, and I felt a wave of betrayal crash over me. I closed the video. For the first time in years, I couldn't bring myself to call him. Not because I didn't want to confront him, but because I already knew the truth. I stood up, paced the room, and let the anger and heartbreak settle in. How could you? I whispered, almost to myself. The person I trusted most in the world had broken me in a way I never thought possible. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every thought about Mark, about us, about everything we'd built together, twisted in my mind. What did I do wrong? Why did he do this? Was I not enough? But deep down, I knew. I was the one who had been strong. The one who had held everything together. And now, he had destroyed it. The next morning, I made a decision. I wouldn't go back. Not to him. Not to the life we had built. I blocked all of our shared accounts. All the finances we had managed together, gone. I was the breadwinner. I was the one who had held up his career when it faltered. I had supported him, but no more. I didn't want him anywhere near my life. Not anymore. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Milan, Florence, Rome, every city felt like a world away from the mess that had consumed my life. My work trip had turned into an impromptu escape, and I wasn't sure if I was running away from Mark, or running towards something new. Maybe both. Every day, I threw myself into my work. I picked up new projects, restructured my schedule to avoid thinking too much about him. But I couldn't escape the fact that everything had changed. I had been married for so long, and now I had to navigate life without him. Without his presence, without his voice. The silence in my apartment was deafening when I returned home, but I welcomed it. I had never really noticed how loud our life together had been until it wasn't there anymore. There were no more arguments, no more awkward silences at the dinner table. I didn't miss the fights, but I missed the companionship. Or maybe I missed the idea of it, the belief that we had something real. But now, all I had was the knowledge that I had been betrayed. I was done. There was a part of me that wanted to call him, to yell at him, to scream until I was heard. But that wasn't going to change anything. The betrayal was etched into my heart now. He would never be able to undo what he had done, I didn't know what my next step would be. But I knew one thing: I would never be the same person again. 2 months had passed since I made the decision to leave him. The weight of betrayal still clung to me like an unshakable shadow, but I had learned how to live with it. There were days when it seemed unbearable, and nights when the quiet of my apartment would pull at me, reminding me of the empty space beside me where he used to sleep. But, for the most part, I had found a rhythm. I was busy with work, traveling, living in a way that didn't feel tied down to the person who had broken me. Milan, Florence, Rome, they had become my temporary sanctuaries, places where I could let the old life slip further away, but that day in Venice, something was different. I was sitting at a small cafe by the canals, trying to focus on the email in front of me, when my phone buzzed again. The number was familiar, too familiar, and my heart sank before I even looked at the screen. Mark. It had been a week since I had last heard from him. He had left me a few voicemails, each one filled with promises of how he was going to fix things, how he regretted his mistakes, and how I was the one who had always been there for him. Each time, I deleted them without listening, too exhausted to confront the pain, but this message was different. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It wasn't just a string of empty words. No, this one was desperate. He was in Venice, he said, and he needed to talk. He told me he was sorry. He told me that he had made mistakes. He even went as far as to say that he had lost everything: his business, his friends, his stability, and now, he had nothing. Except for me. I didn't respond. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, but also something else. It wasn't compassion, it wasn't pity, but I could feel the shift in me. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was indifferent. This was a man who had made his bed, and now, he had to lie in it, but even as I sat there, the thought of him being so close to me, so close to where I had come to find solace, left me uneasy. My mind raced with thoughts of what he might say. What if I listened? What if I gave him another chance? Was that even possible? No. The answer was clear. I had made the decision the day I found out about his betrayal, and I wasn't going to let him erase that. I stood up, paying for my coffee, feeling the weight of his message pressing on my chest. As I walked out of the cafe, I could see the gondolas floating lazily down the canals, the distant hum of tourists and locals blending together, as if the world was unaware of the turmoil I was facing. I was the only one who knew the truth. That night, back in my hotel room, I unpacked my things, trying to push Mark's message to the back of my mind. But a knock at the door jolted me out of my thoughts. My heart skipped a beat. I knew who it was before I even checked the peephole. When I opened the door, there he was. Mark. He looked different, his usual polished appearance was gone. His clothes were wrinkled, his face drawn, eyes sunken. His gaze met mine, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something that wasn't arrogance or anger, it was fear. Olivia, he said, his voice shaky. I had to see you. Please, just hear me out. I didn't let him in. I didn't even invite him to sit down. I stood there, blocking the doorway, my arms crossed over my chest. I don't know what you're doing here, Mark, I said, my voice steady but cold, but I'm done. His face fell, and his eyes flickered with confusion. Olivia. Please. I made a mistake. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. No, I interrupted. You knew exactly what you were doing. I've heard it all. I've heard every excuse, every sorry attempt at an explanation. But the truth is, you betrayed me. You betrayed everything we had. I could see him swallowing hard, his lips trembling. He was desperate. His hands were shaking as he reached for me, but I stepped back, keeping the space between us. You've lost everything, haven't you? I said, my voice lowering. The business, the money, the respect you used to have. You've lost it all. And now you're standing here, asking for my forgiveness? He flinched, the guilt on his face unbearable to watch. I don't know what to do anymore, Olivia. I've ruined everything. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I said, my words sharp. And I will never be again. His face twisted in agony, but it didn't soften me. I felt nothing anymore. There was no love left to give him. Please, he whispered, his voice almost breaking. Don't leave me like this. I looked him in the eyes one last time, the man I had once loved so deeply, and then I turned away. I already left you. You just didn't realize it until now. I closed the door before he could say anything else. The days that followed felt like a blur. Mark had left, but I could still feel the remnants of him, the aftershocks of his presence, the echoes of his desperate eyes. He was gone, but the weight of our past was something I carried with me. It didn't feel like freedom, it felt like a hollow space where love used to live. I spent the next few days in solitude, diving deeper into my work, ignoring every attempt Mark made to contact me. His messages became more frequent. Sometimes they were apologies, sometimes they were long letters begging for a second chance, other times he simply asked if I could forgive him. I read none of them. I knew what he wanted. I knew what he hoped for. But I also knew what I needed, closure. I contacted a lawyer. The divorce papers were drawn up swiftly, without hesitation. The documents were thorough and clear. I wasn't going to drag this out. I had already given him enough chances to prove himself, and he had failed at every turn. This was the final step, the last formality that would sever all ties. The morning I sent the papers felt like a strange kind of release. It wasn't an act of bitterness, it wasn't an act of anger either. It was simply a matter of reclaiming myself. I had lived with the man I thought I knew, but I had never really known him at all. Now, I would live for me. And that, finally, was enough. A week later, I received a final message from him. I didn't open it immediately. The message was brief, just a few lines. I'm sorry, Olivia. I know I can't fix this, but I will always love you. I stared at the message for a long time. In the end, it wasn't worth responding to. It wasn't about him anymore. It wasn't about trying to find some middle ground or seeking closure from him. I had already let go. I deleted the message. I had learned, in the hardest way possible, that sometimes love isn't enough to fix things. Sometimes, it's about self-preservation. And in that moment, I finally realized that I didn't need him to love me. What mattered now was that I loved myself. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a survivor, and as I sat on the balcony of my apartment in Venice, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt peace for the first time in months. It was quiet. It was still. And for once, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. Free. The days following the delivery of the divorce papers were supposed to bring me peace. After everything I had been through, the betrayal, the heartbreak, I thought the finality of it would feel like a weight lifting from my chest. But instead, it felt like a storm was brewing. A storm I couldn't quite predict, but one I knew was coming. Mark wasn't going to go quietly. It had been 2 weeks since I'd sent him the papers. I had been focused on my work, traveling for another business project, trying my best to keep my mind occupied. But the moment I stepped into my apartment late one evening, I knew something was wrong. My phone buzzed as I walked in the door, and I glanced at the screen to see Mark's name flashing in the notifications. He had called 5 times in a row, and now, there was a new text message waiting for me. I hesitated before opening it, my fingers lingering over the screen. I had made the decision to walk away, but something about the message felt different. Maybe it was the fact that Mark was no longer the man I once knew. Maybe it was the quiet desperation that had settled in him, something that reached out to me in a way I hadn't expected. The text read, "I'm not going to sign the papers, Olivia. You can't just walk away from everything we've built. I'm not letting you go that easily." I felt a cold chill run through me as I read it. You can't just walk away from everything we've built. That was his argument, wasn't it? The same argument he'd always used when things got tough, our shared life, our shared history. As if that was enough to hold us together, as if the years we'd spent in each other's arms meant something beyond just time. But I had learned the hard way that love was more than just history. It had to be built on trust, respect, and the ability to grow together. And Mark had torn all of that down when he betrayed me. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I sank down onto the couch, the weight of the message pressing on me. My heart was heavy, but I wasn't afraid of him anymore. He had pushed me to this point. He had forced my hand. I spent the next few hours pacing the apartment, trying to gather my thoughts. I had done everything by the book, hired a lawyer, sent the papers, and made it clear that I was done. But Mark's refusal to sign the divorce papers wasn't just about the end of our marriage, it was about control. He wanted to maintain the upper hand, even if that meant dragging me through more pain. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I need to file for a contested divorce, I told her, my voice firm. He's refusing to sign, and I need to move forward with this, Olivia, my lawyer said, her voice calm but knowing, this is going to get ugly. You need to prepare yourself. I'm ready, I replied, the decision already made. I can't go back. I won't. The first confrontation came a week later. I was in a meeting when my phone rang, Mark's name flashing on the screen again. This time, I answered it. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. He had no power over me. Olivia, he said, his voice strained, I need to talk to you. You can't just take everything from me. This divorce is ruining me. I could hear the panic in his voice, but I refused to let it affect me. Mark, I didn't ruin anything. You did that all on your own. You betrayed me. You destroyed our marriage. I'm done. You can't just leave me like this. We built something together. You owe me. I don't owe you anything, I cut him off. You don't get to make demands anymore. This is over, and it has been for a long time. There was a long silence on the other end of the line before he spoke again. Quieter, more measured. I still love you, Olivia. I'm sorry. Please, don't do this. Please, let me fix it. His words hit me like a slap. I had heard them before, over and over again. But this time, they felt hollow. They weren't about love. They were about him trying to maintain control over a situation that had slipped out of his hands. I can't fix this, Mark, I said, my voice growing colder. I'm not going to pretend that we can go back to what we had. I'm not that person anymore. I've moved on. Then what do you want? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration. What will it take for you to come back? I can't do this alone. I'm nothing without you, I swallowed hard. The words hung heavy between us. But I couldn't give in, no matter how much he tried to pull me back in. I want the divorce papers signed. And then I want you to leave me alone. I could hear him taking in a deep breath. You'll regret this, Olivia, he said finally, his tone ominous. You'll regret walking away from everything. You think you're better off without me, but you're not. And just like that, the phone call ended. That night, I received a letter from Mark's lawyer. It was a formal letter, demanding that I reconsider the divorce. He had retained an attorney of his own, and they were doing everything in their power to stall the process. They claimed that he was entitled to half of our joint assets, including the company I had worked so hard to build. They tried to argue that the marriage was incomplete due to the lack of communication and that we should attend mediation to resolve the issues. I was stunned at first. It was like a slap in the face all over again. He wasn't going to let me walk away without a fight. He wasn't just fighting for money, he was fighting for control, for a piece of the life he had built on my back. The thought of him trying to claim a part of my success, the success that I had fought for, while he had squandered his opportunities, made my blood boil. I called my lawyer immediately. I'm not backing down, I told her firmly. We'll fight this. I've had enough. She assured me we were in a strong position legally, but she also warned me that this was just the beginning of a long and painful process. You'll need to prepare yourself, Olivia. This isn't going to be easy, and she was right. The weeks that followed were filled with legal battles, negotiations, and constant back and forth. Mark's lawyer made threats, tried to discredit me, and even attempted to force me into financial settlements that I knew weren't right. Mark tried to manipulate me in every way he could: emails, phone calls, even surprise visits at my office. It was like he thought he could wear me down, get me to feel sorry for him again, but it only made me stronger. There were days when I felt drained, when I questioned whether it was worth all the stress. But every time I thought about going back, about giving him another chance, I reminded myself of the man who had betrayed me. The man who had cared more about himself than about the woman who had given everything for their future, and in those moments of doubt, I found clarity. I wasn't going to let him break me again. The legal battle raged on for months, but eventually, Mark's resolve began to crumble. His attempts to delay the divorce only led to more frustration and financial setbacks. Slowly, he started to see that I wasn't just fighting for my assets, I was fighting for my life, for my future, and when the judge finally ruled in my favor, the weight of the decision lifted. The divorce was finalized, and Mark had nothing left to hold on to. No more attempts at reconciliation, no more false promises. I had won. And more importantly, I had reclaimed my peace.